Today's Monday, October 18th, 2021, coming up on Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. The first African-American to ever be appointed chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. The first the first black national security advisor, Colin Powell, has died at the age of 84. We'll pay tribute to him. We'll also detail his amazing legacy. There also were some speed bumps along the way. We'll also hear from him. From my interview with him, we talked 10 years ago when he was honored by the NAACP. In Georgia, it is the first day of the trial for the three white men accused of chasing down and killing the unarmed black jogger Ahmaud Arbery. We'll take a look at how jury selection went today. This month marks the 55th anniversary of the Black Panther Party. Tonight, we'll have two former leaders of the Kansas City Black Panther Party who fled the U.S. to talk about the organization's history and if anything has really changed in the last half decade. Also, great news for a Newport News, Virginia family reunited with one of our black and missing we highlighted last week. Folks, it's time to bring the funk on Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Let's go.
He's got it. Whatever the biz, he's on it. Whatever it is, he's got the scoop, the fact, the find. And when it breaks, he's right on time and it's rolling. Best believe he's knowing. Putting it down from sports to news to politics. With entertainment just for kicks, he's rolling. It's on go, roll, roll, y'all. It's Roland Martin, yeah. Rolling with Roland now. He's funk, he's fresh, he's real, the best, you know he's Roland Martin now. Martin.
Hundreds of potential jurors were packed in a South Georgia courthouse as jury selection began for the three white men accused of murdering Ahmaud Arbery. Courthouse. Superior Court Judge Timothy Walmsley heard more motions and instructed the potential jurors.
And we'll make sure that you shall give true answers to all questions as may.
Classes. Number 20. Is there personally know Greg McMichael? He's seated over there next to Laura Hogue. Anyone know Greg McMichael personally? No cards. Does anyone know Travis McMichael? Seated right here. Does anyone know him personally? No cards. Does anyone know William, who goes by the nickname Roddy Bryan, who's sitting down there? Anyone know Mr. Bryan? All right. All right. You've seen the three gentlemen who are in the indictment. Do they look familiar to you? You might not know them personally, but you're looking at them going, yeah, I think I might know him from somewhere, I don't know. Anybody feel they are familiar? Number 25.
Would they be from TV or anywhere?
Yeah. Actually, no. I'm
As the case is similar to the murder of another unarmed young black man.
Understand that this case is eerily similar to that of Trayvon Martin, another young African-American who was shot and killed by a citizen. The difference between Trayvon Martin and Ahmaud Arbery is there's video in Ahmaud Arbery, and we expect full justice for Ahmaud Arbery.
It could take 2 weeks or longer to seat a jury of 12 with 4 alternates to hear the case. 1,000 jury notices were mailed out to potential jurors. Let's discuss this with my panel. Dr. Omokongo Dibinga, professorial lecturer, School of International Service at American University, Georgia Fort, independent journalist, Demario Solomon Simmons, a civil rights attorney, founder of Justice for Greenwood. Mario, I want to start with you. This is obviously going to be a trial that many people are going to be paying attention to. They'll be examining every aspect of this. And there was so much that happened in this particular case here. It even got us to this point.
Yeah, no question. Thanks, Roland, for having me on once again. I'm glad to see so many of my friends and people I work with, like Ben and Barbara Arwan down there in Georgia, representing and supporting the family of Ahmaud Arbery. You know, this is going to be a tough case, even though we've seen video. We've seen other cases where video has been very clear and we still didn't get a conviction. But I'm very pleased to see down there that they got rid of the DA who was involved in this conspiracy to cover up the crime of the murder of Ahmaud Arbery. I've been involved in jury selections many, many times. This is not going to be an easy opportunity to find an impartial jury because everyone, it's a small town, everyone has heard about this case. But if they put on the evidence the way they should and the way the judge has been ruling, you know, they tried to bring in Ahmaud Arbery's mental issues that they said he had. They said he had some minor criminal background, things that were completely irrelevant. But this judge has kept it out. And if they keep this on what actually happened, that these individuals accosted this young man who was unarmed and shot and killed him, hopefully, and they should be convicted for first-degree murder.
Georgia, again, we've seen so many other cases, so many other stories that we've covered. Obviously, we saw the case of the officer who killed George Floyd there in Minneapolis, with the Walter Scott case as well. I mean, this is different because it's not involving a police officer, but it is involving someone who used to work with law enforcement, and that's part of the problem, how they frankly tried to cover this thing up to keep from bringing these folks to justice.
Correct. Roland, I think it's very interesting that Jackie Johnson was indicted. It's the first time I've ever heard of an attorney being indicted for their role in a cover-up. So it will definitely be interesting to see what type of evidence comes forth in this trial that shows, especially with McMichael, because I believe he was the one who used to work for the attorney who allegedly or is accused of asking officers to not make any arrests. And then obviously they had to move forward with those indictments after the video evidence was brought forth. But just like in the George Floyd case, it is going to be a very grueling trial. We're going to go through weeks of having to look at different video evidence and just testimony that is traumatizing for our community to continuously have to relive these narratives of our Black men being hunted down and killed by either law enforcement or other white folks in community, quite frankly, who feel like they have the authority to uphold the law and take matters into their own hands. But I'm hopeful that, like we saw in the Derek Chauvin trial, I was one of two journalists in the courtroom when he was sentenced. I'm hopeful that they'll be able to find a jury that can bring forth justice for Ahmaud's family.
Of course, what we saw here on Macongo, as Demario said, this effort to try to create this negative portrait of Ahmaud Arbery, and others are making the mistake. This is not the Ahmaud Arbery trial. He is not on trial. It is the three white men who killed him. They are on trial.
Absolutely, and I think you brought up several important points already that Attorney Crump also brought up, is that number one, this is not about what police have done. This is similar to Zimmerman and Trayvon Martin, and people are so quick to try to equate this as another style police case a la George Floyd. And it's great that we're differentiating between that, because that's extremely important. And then when you talk about people calling this the Ahmaud Arbery trial, we have to realize at the end of the day that this is extremely problematic in terms of the timing that people are using to choose to bring up information about Ahmaud Arbery, because a jury has not been selected yet. They have not been sequestered right now. So this information that is coming out, it's making its way to potential jurors who are going to already have this information. So I think that the defense is doing this on purpose, to go off of what Demario was saying. And I think that they're really being slick about it. I'm glad that we've had a judge who's made some good decisions to date. I'm also a little bit concerned about the makeup of whoever was involved in that jury selection, because I think everybody who you showed in that video was white, and there was one Black woman in the far corner. So that gives me a little bit of concern as well. And so, yeah, we have to make sure that people realize this is not the Ahmaud Arbery trial. These guys did not know anything about his status or probation or anything when they decided to execute him. And really, at the end of the day, it comes down to making sure that we don't let that narrative stick.
You know, look, Demario, we talk on this show a lot about voting and about voter suppression. Well, people have to understand, if you're not a registered voter, you don't get to be a part of jury selections. You don't get a jury notice. The two go hand in hand.
No, it absolutely goes hand in hand. And a lot of times, and I'm always advocating for this, and I'm Roland, I know you are, is a lot of times our people will get a jury notice and they say, hey, get me out of jury duty. I get that call all the time from my friends and professionals, and I'm saying, no, we need to show up, because it makes a big difference to have just one Black face in the jury room. It makes a big difference on the deliberations and what may happen. And that's why it's important for us to be involved at every step of the political process, registering to vote, voting, and showing up when it's our time to do our duty.
Well, is the point there, Georgia, that we keep emphasizing that, and yeah, folks, oh my goodness, here comes the jury, but then a jury notice, a jury summons, but then they complain when something happens.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure if you still have my audio here, but
Yeah, we got you. We got your audio.
even in the Derek Chauvin trial, there were weeks of jury selection, and you had folks who were trying to wiggle their way out of it, but also just even the process, right? The jury selection process we saw in that trial, and I'm pointing to that trial. I know that there are some major differences, but just to point to the jury selection process, that was the first time America really got to see just how that process can be discriminatory. I mean, there was a woman who spoke Spanish, and they put her on the chopping block so quick and basically said she was incompetent just because English wasn't her primary language, right? That shouldn't be the reason why somebody is disqualified. And so, as we look at these trials more and more, as they're televised and more visible across our country, we also need to be examining the process in which jurors are selected so that we can have an inclusive process that allows everybody a chance to sit on that jury and ultimately decide, and I mean, think about how critical that role is to our citizenship.
Well, again, it's the thing is trying to get people to understand why all of these things are connected. We talk about connecting the dots, and so voting and voter registration is tied directly to a number of issues: who we elect as DAs, who we elect as judges, but also who gets these jury summons. And so that's why we emphasize this a whole lot. I'm trying to get our people to understand that. Got to go to break. When we come back, we're going to talk about Supreme Court addressing the issue of qualified immunity. That is next on Roland Martin Unfiltered, right here on the Black Star Network.
Betty is saving big holiday shopping at Amazon. So now, she's free to become Bear Hug Betty. Settle in, kids. You'll be there a while. Ooh, where you going?
What's up, everybody? It's Godfrey, the funniest dude on the planet.
Hey, I'm Taj.
I'm Coco.
And I'm Lily. And we're SWV.
What's up, y'all? It's Ryan Destiny, and you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
In two cases, the Supreme Court says police officers were entitled to qualified immunity when using force. In two unsigned opinions, the court stressed police are entitled to be shielded from liability unless it is clear to a reasonable officer that their actions are unlawful. Now, qualified immunity protects officials from lawsuits unless it can be proven they violated clearly established rights a reasonable person would know they have. One case involved an officer putting his knee on a man's back during an arrest while removing a knife from his pocket. In the other case, two officers shot and killed a man after he appeared to threaten them with a hammer. Now, police reform advocates have called for an end to qualified immunity, arguing it insulates officers from accountability for wrongdoing. DeMario, when you look at these cases here, it speaks volumes, if you will, to this balance that we're trying to strike. And again, police officers, I mean, they want to protect, they want to keep this in, but the bottom line is here. We've got to deal with this reality of how this is impacting accountability. And so we don't have the Georgia Floyd Justice Act. It still hasn't passed on the congressional level, but you do have efforts where it can be impacted on the state level.
Yeah, Roland, this is something, as you know, I deal with on a daily basis in my practice. We do a lot of issues having to deal with qualified immunity, and it's one of the worst things that can happen to a family. Let's look, this is my client, Dr. Tiffany Crutcher, whose twin brother Terrence was shot in 2016. Because of qualified immunity, this case has been sitting in court for almost 3 years, not being able to move forward because the other side has asserted qualified immunity. And what that does, not only does it prolong things, but it actually stops the court case until the judge decides the qualified immunity issue. It's very destructive. It doesn't allow families to have closure, and it allows these rogue officers to literally get away with murder. In the case, one of the cases that you're talking about is right here in Oklahoma, in Tahlequah, Oklahoma, where they cornered a man who they knew was intoxicated. They knew he was not in his right mind. They cornered him in his garage, and they forced the issue. And when he had a hammer in his hand, they could have backed out. They could have used pepper spray. They could have used a taser, but instead they shot him multiple times and killed him. And what the 10th Circuit stated was, hey, you can't cause a problem and then shoot someone and say, oh, well, qualified immunity. But the Supreme Court has allowed this to happen. And this is what people need to understand, why we need this federal legislation and we need these states to pass legislation to get rid of qualified immunity. It's not in the statute. It is a court-created law that was created by the courts back in the early 1980s when civil rights attorneys were able to use 1983 legislation to finally hold officers accountable. This is a big impediment to accountability and justice for people who are brutalized by the state. It must end, it must end, it must end, and we must do everything we can to make sure it happens.
This is something, Georgia, again, that we have to deal with. In Maryland, the governor, Larry Hogan, Republican, he vetoed the repeal of the Bill of Rights. It was overwritten by the Maryland legislature. That's one of the areas there. Now, obviously, they want to see action on the federal level, but people can still move on the state and local level. We can't hear you, Georgia. All right, hold on one second. I still can't hear you. We'll get your audio straight. Okay, so hold tight 1 second. I'm going to go to Omekongo, and then we'll come back to you. Omekongo?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yep, we got you. Go ahead.
Okay, awesome. Well, I think that when we look at these situations and in cases like this, my main problem when I see this right now is that this is like a sign of things to come, which I think can be very scary. And really, at the end of the day right now, I'm glad is what Demario was talking about in terms of there's other ways we can get around this, because we have to fight every single day just to make sure that the basics are taken care of. And one of the challenges we see right now is that these police don't care about de-escalation techniques. They don't care about fully engaging with the community. And we're going to get more situations like this. And when I see it right now, I feel like this type of case is going to make these officers feel like they are empowered to do more of this. And so we have to keep making sure that we're fighting at the local level in every way possible in order to make sure that this doesn't continue. But I got to tell you, Roland, when I first heard about these two, the rulings, I was like, okay, this is terrible. But then I was like, let me go and actually read what the cases were when it was sent to us. And I'm like, wow, these are basic interactions that happen with us every day. And now they're going to feel like they can get away scot-free with a lot of this. And it's a really scary time right now.
Georgia.
Yeah, I mean, I would just echo that. I think even here in Minneapolis, we're seeing the aftermath of community trying to figure out what is the best way to move forward with the police department that's currently being investigated by the Department of Justice. And so that is one thing that makes me hopeful, that the DOJ is not only investigating the Minneapolis Police Department, but also investigating Louisville, where Breonna Taylor was killed. But what really concerns me is the recent loopholes that we have learned about here. When you have, whether it's sheriffs or police officers who are deputized to serve on a federal task force, they actually do not have to wear body cameras. And we learned about that in June when Winston Smith was fatally shot by a U.S. Marshal. And we were told that there's absolutely no body camera footage of this incident at all. How can that be in 2021? When we've already gone through this, and it is recommended best practices that law enforcement agencies utilize body camera footage for transparency and accountability. But yet and still, there are these loopholes that we're just now learning about. And so we have to move to a place as a country where we're not reactive. We're not waiting until another Black man is killed before we decide, oh, we need to change these laws. We should be taking these measures proactively before someone is killed.
You know, this is again one of those issues that is at the center of this debate, if you will, DeMario, this battle going back and forth, and these unions are going to fight like crazy to ensure this does not get removed.
No question, unions, because they don't want their officers to have accountability. That's why, I mean, obviously we're all advocates for body cams and different type of training, but at the end of the day, it's just like basic second 2 to 4 year old. If there's no accountability, if they can get away with it, they will do it. And what we've seen now, and it's been really frightening over the last few years, is we've seen video after video after video, and people still do it. They know they have videos on. Last week, Roland, we talked about the officer who kicked the man in the face in Indianapolis. That guy knew he had a body cam on. He still did it because he feels like he can get away with it. So I would encourage everyone that's listening right now, reach out to your city councilor, your county commissioner, and your state representative and tell them to repeal qualified immunity within their state. Colorado's done it as a state. New Mexico has done it. New York City has repealed qualified immunity. So even though we don't have it on a federal level, we must continue to attack qualified immunity. It is the single biggest impediment to police accountability that is out there right now. They can kill people, beat people, steal money. They had a case in Fresno last term at the Supreme Court where these 2 officers literally stole hundreds of thousands of dollars from an individual, and the Supreme Court said, well, it wasn't, it's clearly established law that they did not have the right to steal this money. They literally stole money from a citizen, and the Supreme Court said qualified immunity protected them from prosecution, from being sued. And that's what we're up against, and that's why it's so imperative.
Absolutely. All right, folks, got to go to a break. We come back. One of our Black and Missing return home safely. Also have headlines up next right here on Roland Martin Unfiltered, the Black Star Network. Don't forget, folks, you can download the app. More than 18,000 folks have done so. Our goal is to get to 50,000 by December 31st, by the end of December. So please download on your Apple iPhone, Android phone, Roku, Android TV, Amazon Fire TV, Xbox, and Samsung as well. You can, of course, support Roland Martin Unfiltered as well by joining our Bring the Funk fan club, where every dollar you give goes to support what we do. Cash App, $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland@RolandSMartin.com. Roland@RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. I'll be right back.
Oh, that spin class was brutal. Well, you can try using the Buick's massaging seat. Ooh, yeah, that's nice. Can I use Apple CarPlay to put some music on? Sure. It's wireless. It's something we all like. Okay, hold on. What's your Buick's Wi-Fi password? Buick Envision 2021. Oh, you should pick something stronger. That's really predictable. That's a really tight spot. Don't worry. I used to hate parallel parking. Me too. Hey.
Really outdid yourself.
Yes, we did.
The all-new Buick Envision, an SUV built around you, all of you.
Once upon a time, there lived a princess with really long hair who was waiting for a prince to come save her. But really, who has time for that?
Let's go. Feeling myself. I'm feeling
She ordered herself a ladder with Prime one-day delivery, and she was out of there.
I'm with some hood girls looking back at it and a good girl in my tax bracket.
Now, her hairdressing empire is killing it. And the prince, well, who cares? Prime changes everything.
I'm Bill Duke.
This is Diala Riddle.
What's up, y'all? I'm Will Packer.
I'm Chrisette Michelle.
Hi, I'm Chaley Rose, and you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
All right, folks. Every day, of course, we feature someone who is black and missing on this show. Many of their stories do not get the attention that is needed. Lakira Pitt-Goldsmith, she has been missing since November 27, 2018 in Montgomery, Alabama. Her grandmother saw her getting out of her boyfriend's car, but she never made it back into the house. Lakira was 20 years old at the time of her disappearance. She's approximately 5 feet 5 inches tall and weighs between 140 and 180 pounds. She has black hair and brown eyes. Both of her ears are pierced, as well as her lower lip. She has a snake eye tongue piercing. When Lakira went missing, she was wearing a black velvet knee-length dress, a silver rhinestone choker necklace, silver rhinestone earrings, and a silver lip ring. She also had blonde hair extensions with black roots. If you have any information about Lakira Pitt-Goldsmith, contact the Montgomery, Alabama Police Department at 334-625-2810. That's 334-625-2810. Now, here's an update on a story that we told you about last week. 30-year-old Tynesha Taylor, she has been found. She's been missing for more than a month. She had been reunited with her family and is in good health. She, of course, was found missing out of Newport News, Virginia, and she's been found safe and is with her family. And so we certainly are glad to hear about that news. And so we're going to do one of these stories every single day, folks, because, again, those things are critically important. Folks, in Philadelphia, they become the first major city to ban police officers from pulling over drivers for low-level violations like broken taillights. The driving equality bill passed by the Philadelphia City Council will stop officers from using traffic stops as a precursor to search vehicles. In 2019, black folks accounted for 43% of the city's population, 72% of vehicle code violation stops. Less than 1% of those stops resulted in illegal weapons or drug seizures. Let me say it again. 72% of all vehicle code violations in Philadelphia were involving African American. Less than 1% of those stops resulted in illegal weapons or drug seizures. Congo, this is something we showed the video last week several, actually we did several videos that it happens all the time. Walter Scott, that was a taillight. Case of the brother there in Minneapolis, the
Dante
officers
Wright.
go, Dante, what? Traffic stop. I mean, we can go on and on how many times traffic stops have resulted in the death of African Americans. And so this is a great move by the City Council of Philadelphia.
I really commend the City Council of Philadelphia for what they're doing. And you can go even outside of this to situations with stop and frisk in New York. Whenever there's any type of policy that allows the police to interact with civilians, the majority of the cases are always going to be affecting us. Same thing we saw with Ferguson when they did a study a while ago. And other cities need to follow suit with this. These basic interactions should not cost us our lives, illegal searches, or other types of issues. You're talking about 43% and over 70% of the people stopped. We need more of this. We talk a lot about, and again, this is an example of what happens from what we were talking about in the last segment, of when you're proactive instead of reactive and not just waiting for the next case to happen. And so other cities need to, I would love to see that happen in places like DC, in my hometown of Boston, Massachusetts, because really at the end of the day, we need more of this. And it's another example of what people can be doing on the local level while this federal government is still dragging its feet on every part of legislation having to deal with police interactions with black people, which is extremely frustrating.
Georgia, this is one of those examples, again, for people who are watching, and it's amazing to me how many times we have to reiterate this, when folks focus on, oh my goodness, Congress is not acting, Biden's not doing anything, and I keep saying, you can impact criminal justice reform, you can impact mass incarceration, you can impact all these issues, not just in Washington, D.C., city councils, county governments, state legislatures, they can all take action. This type of law passed by the city council is important because in other cities, DAs have announced they are not going to prosecute these cases. This is the city council ordering the cops, do not do it.
Yeah. And these are the kind of reforms that are needed in order to restore trust in communities of color. I mean, what we've seen over the last decade is severe erosion of trust between police and communities of color. And so, unless we're seeing more of these types of reforms, we're going to continue to have issues. Roland, you have someone like Philando Castile, who was pulled over 49 times in 13 years, 49 times. That is ridiculous. And so I think that this is a huge step in the right direction. But, you know, even here, we're approaching a huge vote that's coming up on November 2nd, where you have some folks who are looking to seriously abolish the Minneapolis Police Department. And even going back to folks like Angela Davis, civil rights icon Angela Davis. I remember hearing her say that reforming the police is like reforming slavery. And at one point in time, before slavery was abolished, there were serious conversations about reforming slavery, and that sounds absurd, right? And so she drew that parallel here in a city where they are drawing blueprints of what a new public safety department could look like. But I think that on a local level, if you're seeing more police departments get real serious, and I mean real serious about their commitment to reform and adapting a model like this, we might actually be able to salvage our police departments in this country.
You know, DeMario, the thing that I think is hard for people to come to grips with is that we have given so much leeway and allowed police officers to do, frankly, do whatever the hell they want. In the next segment, we're going to talk about the 55th anniversary of the Black Panther Party. Everybody forgets the Black Panther Party was founded initially to protect black citizens from police abuse. The thing, and so a lot of people just don't quite get it when we're talking about how pervasive this is, and this type of law is important because, tell me this, if a cop does pull somebody over and it results in some sort of action, now from this point forward, isn't that an unlawful act since the city council has outlawed it?
Absolutely, and it shows a good basis to bring forward your civil suit, but hopefully that these cops will listen to this and follow the law. And this is what's important about this. Number one, there's never been trust between law enforcement and the black community because we know what they're about. They're about oppressing us. There should be, anybody that's listening right now, you do not want to have any interaction with the police, period, point blank. And so anything that stops you from having interaction with the police is a good thing, number one. Number two, it is important for city councils, county commissioners, and mayors of cities to take control and control their police departments. We cannot rely upon a police department to reform itself. It's not going to do it. Here in Tulsa, we had to fight really, really hard to get our city councils to finally understand that they do have power, they can pass legislation, and we want to look to this Philadelphia model as a model we want to bring here to Tulsa and around the country. There is no need for these people to pull you over for a tail light or your headlights not on. That is just pretextual opportunities for them to get to you and abuse you and violate your civil rights. Also, this is why we need a decriminalization of marijuana. That is another major component for them to be able to violate rights by saying they smelled something and now you got to get out your car. And the last thing I would say for everyone listening, remember this. If you have police interaction, never admit to any crime, never consent to any search. Say it again. Never admit, never consent. I'm going to say it one more time. Never admit and never, ever, ever consent to a search. They will always try to find something to violate your rights, believe me.
All right, so on that particular point, last week we showed this video of a brother who was coming home from church. Girlfriend was in the car and child was in the back seat. They pull him over for a traffic violation. Then they ask him to step out of the car to search his vehicle. Now, we showed the body. First of all, the cops lied because they claim he didn't use a turn signal. Well, on the body camera footage, it showed he did use a turn signal. But in that case, they literally they rummaged through everything in the car. Okay, so for the people who are watching, okay, so when you say don't give consent, should he have said, you do not have the right to search my vehicle? What exactly should someone say? If they pull you over and the officer says, I need you to step out of the car so we can search the vehicle, what do you say?
Okay, first of all, I don't know what your state law may say about getting in and out of your car, so you have to check that. But your constitutional federal right is that you can deny or object to a search, and you should always say no. I don't care if they say we're going to send you here and bring out the dogs. I don't care if they say we can get a warrant. Say no, because if you give them the opportunity and you say yes to a consent, then they can utilize that in court against you. But if you say no, then you can have an opportunity to get whatever they found. If they find something, to have it kicked out of court. So you never, ever, ever want to give consent. Under zero circumstances do you give consent. Under zero circumstances do you want to even give I'll just take it a step further, blow an alcohol DUI test. Say no. If they got to take you to jail, say no, because it will be used against you. When they tell you that they say anything you can and will be used against you, that you say they are telling the truth. And if you give them a consent to search your vehicle, you're giving them an opportunity to try to find something on you, period. And another thing you need to understand, you want to make sure you get home after a police encounter, right? You want to leave not in a hearse, not in an IMSA or in an ambulance. So you want to make sure that you get home. So you cannot win the fight out on the street. That's not saying you let them just run over you. You say no to consents to search, but don't try to fight them. Don't try to get loud, because that's not going to work. You need to just get home, make sure you say no to a consent, and then call a civil rights attorney like myself who can fight for your rights and make sure that you're safe.
All right, then. Well, that's certainly good advice right there. Again, Omakongo, I think last point before we go to a break. The thing here is, everybody who's watching, you're at home right now, and you're in Charlotte, you're in Houston, you're in St. Louis, you're in some city, okay, and you're sitting here trying to demand something happen in D.C. No, you should be going to your city council and saying, do what Philadelphia just did.
That's right. That's right. And everybody should be doing it, and we all have the power to do that. And really, at the end of the day, we can talk about everything that's happening around the country, but if we all put our energy and efforts of what's happening right down the street, I mean, I'm thinking about so many cases. Sandra Bland, I mean, the list goes on and on. There are people who could be alive today with actions like this. And so we need to get off of any armchair political commentary. And do we even know the names of our city councilors, right? Do we even know where their offices are? Do we know where the meetings are? A lot of them are happening over Zoom right now. Everybody can get out there and do something. This also ties into the conversation about jury duty as well. This is what action looks like, and it's going to have to happen at the local level so we can be the example for the federal level.
All right, folks, got to go to a break. We come back, we'll talk to two members of the Black Panther Party who fled America. Friday marked the 55th anniversary of the Black Panther Party. We'll discuss their story next on Roland Martin Unfiltered, right here on the Black Star Network.
Maureen is saving big holiday shopping at Amazon. So now she's free to become Maureen the Merrier. Food is her love language, and she really loves her grandson. Like, really loves.
Time to be smart.
Roland Martin's doing this every day.
Oh, no punches! Thank you, Roland Martin, for always giving voice to the issues.
Look for Roland Martin in the whirlwind, to quote Marcus Garvey again.
The video looks phenomenal, so I'm really excited to see it on my big screen.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
I got to defer to the brilliance of Dr. Carr and to the brilliance of the Black Star Network.
I am rolling with Roland all the way. Honored to be on a show that you own. A black man owns the show.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
I'm real revolutionary right now. Roland was amazing on there.
Stay black. I love y'all.
I can't commend you enough about this platform that you've created for us to be able to share who we are, what we're doing in the world, and the impact that we're having.
Let's be smart. Bring your eyeballs home.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
You dig?
My name is Charlie Wilson.
Hi, I'm Sally Richardson Whitfield.
And I'm Dodger Whitfield.
Hey everybody, this is your man Fred Hammond, and you're watching Roland Martin, my man, Unfiltered.
The Black Panther Party, originally called the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense, was founded by college students Bobby Seale and Huey P. Newton October 15th, 1966 in Oakland, California. Friday marked the 55th anniversary of the Black Power political organization. Considered one of the most revolutionary yet dangerous groups in America, of course, by the FBI in America. Of course, they had chapters all over the country and the world. Yet America was also scared of African Americans claiming self-defense. And so it was J. Edgar Hoover and COINTELPRO, the federal government, state legislatures, also cities as well, that targeted the Black Panthers, saying they simply would not allow them to grow in power and influence. Well, two of the Kansas City Black Panther Party founding members, Pete O'Neill, who is out of Tanzania, and his wife Charlotte Hill O'Neill, who's in Kansas City, they join me now on the show. Glad to have both of you here. First and foremost, Pete, you're there in Tanzania. Why?
I am, sir. Because I've been in exile for 51 years. And my wife and I, my lovely wife and I, have been able to maintain and continue the work and the efforts of the Black Panther Party here. We have built a community center that is internationally known. We have raised children. We have educated people in the arts, English, computers. Our works are legion. And I have to give a lot of credit to that, to my lovely wife sitting there next to you. How you doing, babe?
I'm doing great. Good to see you.
Good to see you, too.
So, Pete, you said you're in exile. Why? What happened?
Because I had an ongoing beef with the chief of police in Kansas City, Clarence Kelly, who later replaced J. Edgar Hoover as the director of the FBI. I went to Washington, D.C. to lodge charges against him for confiscating guns and turning them over to right-wing organizations. Fairness demands that I correct that and say that I charged his officers of confiscating guns and turning them over. They had a hearing to clear his name, and of course, he was cleared. But that led to my being in exile. They came back a few weeks later and found where I had bought a gun a year before, a $19 single-shot shotgun, and they claimed that I had transported it from Kansas City, Kansas to Kansas City, Missouri. And that in some places is going across the street. Now, I have carried many guns across that state line, but I did not with that one. And I was found guilty. They concocted 3 charges, 5 years each. They found me guilty on 1, had a hung jury on 2. The prosecutor jumped up and said, "We're going to retry him." They gave me 4 years on the 1 year. I've never said this publicly. I'm going to do this now. A policeman, Sergeant Parker, who was a liaison between the police, they used him as a liaison, to try to sway us away from our revolutionary activities. I used to talk about him bad, call him an Uncle Tom. I didn't know he was an angel in disguise. He came to me one time, and this is so on my mother's grave, and he came to me and he looked at me. I was at the YMCA. He said, Pete, when you go to jail, they're going to kill you. And he looked at me. This is a man older than me. And he started crying. He said, they're going to kill you, and ain't a damn thing I can do about it. Well, I can remember Kenny Rogers in The Gambler, where he played, he sang this song. He said, you got to know when to hold them, know when to fold them, know when to walk away, and know when to run. I knew at that moment it was time to get out of Dodge. I took my 19-year-old wife, and we got on a Scandinavian plane, and it took off. It climbed, heading north, and all that was left on the ground was its shadow. And my wife and I went into the beginning of a 51-year, extremely exciting adventure, and the adventure continues.
So, Charlotte, you're in Kansas City, and so have you been traveling back and forth?
Every year I go on our UACC Heal the Community Tour. And I tell you, I just flew in day before yesterday, so I am jet lagged. But I'm so happy to be on the Black Star Network. Yes, and this is such an auspicious occasion. Just think, 55 years of the founding of the Black Panther Party. And it's still a lot of we who are now elders, you know, but we are still doing community work. And that is because of our experiences in the Black Panther Party. And like Brother Pete just said, we have been able to continue the community service that was the main thing of the Black Panther Party. Of course, it started out as being trying to protect the community, trying to sensitize the community to police brutality. But people a lot of times forget the thousands of children that we fed all across the country. You had to do this in each chapter. The medical centers, the helping incarcerated people and their families, you know, and this is what we have continued to do. And during Brother Pete's exile, we have not just survived, Brother Roland, we have thrived. And we have become one of the legends in the community in Tanzania and all over the world. I'm so proud of that. Being a positive example for these young people, we need all the positive examples that we can get.
Yes, we do.
So, Pete, what is it about the Black Panthers that, in your estimation, that people make the biggest mistake when they talk about the Black Panthers? What's the biggest mistake folks make?
Most people look, and I have had people ask me this to my face. They will say, yes, but aren't you a terrorist organization? I said, we most certainly are not. I say the Black Panther Party was founded, the foundational beliefs of the Black Panther Party are founded in and on love. Love for our African-American communities, and if you want to take it to a more egalitarian situation, love for poor and oppressed people throughout the world. Our job, we started out, as Charlotte so correctly pointed out, we started out to protect the Black community. And then we had to serve the Black community. And this is what Charlotte and I are like this to this day. If we are not working, if we are not doing something concrete to contribute to the development or the survival of our community, we feel bad because we know we're coming up short. We know there's something we're not doing right. And so we do this. We have raised over 30 children, not orphans. I wouldn't call them orphans, although some of them may have been, but they all come from extremely challenged backgrounds. We took them as babies, small, not babies, toddlers, some 4 years old, something like that. And we've raised these children up. I was just with them. It's on Facebook. I was just with them the Saturday at their boarding school. And they're getting ready, they're young adults getting ready to enter into the world. We did this, and we did it not in the name of Pete and Charlotte O'Neill. We did it as members of the Black Panther Party, and we are known throughout the world for this type of work. We've had some notable people come here. My cousin is Congressman Emmanuel Cleaver. He's been out here. Sean Penn, the actor, has been out here at our place. Jude Law, the actor, has been here. What we need to do now is get some of our good folks of color, more of them, to come out here and see what we're doing and see how they can join hands with us and become involved in the very good work that we're doing. I'm telling you, this woman here that I'm married to, someone referred to her correctly as being angelic. She is, and I don't want to take up too much time on this, but it's just simply the truth. She's an extremely good woman, and she's had such a positive effect on me that it makes me so proud. I wake up in the morning and look in the face, look at my picture in the mirror, I say, I'm not as bad as I was yesterday. And it's in due to a large part because of this woman right here. Telling you the truth, brother. You know, I'm telling you, I'm from the streets. I have no reason to lie to you, no gain whatsoever. That is just hardcore truth. She has had an effect on me that is profound. And it's odd because it started out, I was her older man. She had just turned 18 years old. I was 29 years old. You can only imagine how her father took to that when she took me over there to meet him. But he wanted to shoot me. I know he did. But he later became my best friend. But the script has been flipped. Now she's impacting on my life. I stay here with the kids 24/7. She travels around the world and she comes back and tells me about the exotic adventures she's had in China and Venezuela. It's just amazing. So anyway, I said we've had these people come out there. I'd love to have you come, brother. I really would. I'd love for you to come. I'd love for you and your crew to come out here and see, is this just hype? This stuff they're talking. Is it that, you know, someone could run that like that and make it sound good, but it really is true.
Well, we might have to make that happen. I know I got to go to Liberia in 2022 for the 200th anniversary. And so they're trying to get me to come back to Ghana, and the Senegalese folks, the Nigerian folks will come. So we might have to make that a part of the trip. I'm going to get a quick question from each one of my panelists before we go to a break, because we're doing our Colin Powell tribute. Georgia, you get the first question for Charlotte and Pete.
Well, first, I just want to say thank you for your service to our community and for just keeping the legacy of the Black Panthers alive. I'm curious to know from you both how you have viewed the last year or two here in America, as we've seen so much protesting, and we've seen these photos from 2020 in comparison to, you know, the 50s and the 60s, and it looks so similar. What are your thoughts about the recent uprising? Do you feel like we've made progress? Do you feel like America has backslidden? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think in a way they have backslid, but some progress has been made. That sounds contradictory, but it is true. But I was listening to you all talk before we came on the show, and I listened to you all, and I said, boy, they're speaking truth to power. And you were laying out a roadmap for what our people need to do. I have been asked 1,000 times, what should we do? And I said, organize, organize, organize. But I didn't take it further. I didn't take it far enough. You said get involved with the city councils. Make them do like they did. Did you say Philadelphia? You said, yep. Well, that was powerful. That was powerful. And that's a perfect example for something that it's not the end of it. It's not the end all be all, but it's a damn good first step. And so I think you're doing a wonderful job. And I think that this is a direction that our people need to be moving in. And what's so very, very interesting is the things that are happening now can be instantly recorded because everyone has recording technology in their hand. We didn't have that. It was our word against them, and you knew how that was going to turn out. And so, no, I am so proud of the manner in which people have organized so many people to speak out. George Floyd, there's so many people that have been. Oh, I keep up with this. I'm on the news, brother Roland. I watched you when you were on CNN, and I watched you when you made this marvelous transition. So I've watched what's happening, and I'm going to keep on. You all are doing a great job, and you're inspiring us, and I know you're inspiring people around the world.
I absolutely appreciate that. Charlotte, go ahead. Yeah, Charlotte, go ahead.
Yes, it's wonderful what the sister was saying. It's wonderful what Brother P was saying, but we can't forget that we also need to revive our community spirit, the love that's in the community, the way elders, when I was coming up in the 50s, the way elders would mentor youth and teach them how to do things with their hands. It's like we've forgotten how to do that. It's not just about book learning, y'all. It's about being able to also build and work together, whether it's a community garden, whether it's helping young people who can't read the way we used to do it for the Black Panther Party. It has to encompass small neighborhood, small community groups also to build up this love that's going to help turn things around. And I got to mention this. My cousin, Elizabeth Deanna, was out here for 2 months.
Yep.
She's one of the youth who has been inspired by the Black Panther Party, by what the United African Alliance Community Center is doing. And you know what she's doing? She's starting to build a love story.
Yep.
A love story.
It's called Love. It's called, doing the film is called Love Away the Hate. Folks out there, you can follow her.
That's going to be.
Yep, you can follow her on Instagram, EBDIONNA. E for Elizabeth, B for boy, DIONNA. I want to quickly get to a question from DeMario, then we'll go to Omakongo, because I've got guests waiting talking about Colin Powell. DeMario, your question for Charlotte and Pete.
Man, I just want to say it's such an honor to be on a call with these two living legends, and the way this brother has talked about his queen is truly inspiring. I am just so honored to meet you. I have a lot of family in Kansas City, the Ransoms and the Hobsons, and live right on 38th in Cleveland. I spent a lot of time up there in Kansas City, so it's just an honor. And you in Tanzania, one of my goals is to come to East Africa. I've been to South Africa, I've been to West Africa, but I want to get over to East Africa. So hopefully we can get connected after the show. I really don't have a question outside of, man, just tell us, I've been married, my wife 17 years, been together 30 years. How 50-year plus marriage internationally, just talk to us about that love, because I am just truly inspired to hear from you two.
Yes.
Let me tell you, allow me to tell you the answer to that. How do we do it? Has it been a crystal staircase? No, it has not. Have there been ups and downs? Yes, there have been. But we have a glue that has bound us together. And the glue was the ability to step outside ourselves, step outside our personal aspirations and goals, and embrace something larger than ourselves. And the thing we embraced was the struggle. And so whenever a problem arises, and they will arise, trust me, whenever they arise, we say, yeah, we do a little criticism and self-criticism. Is it right? Is it wrong? I may not be able to say it's wrong right now, but I'll think it in my mind, and I'll know it's wrong, and I have to back down. She'll do identically the same thing. That is the thing that builds relationships. That and the fact that the Black Panther Party was created on a foundation of love, as I said before. I would be remiss and I would not be able to live with the shame were I not to mention political prisoners. You all, while we're talking about what to do, we've got to get these people out of jails that have been languishing and suffering for 30 and 40 years for crimes that were made up by COINTELPRO. We all know it was. We all know COINTELPRO still exists. Ed Poindexter in Omaha, Sundiata, all of these, and the names are too numerous to mention. We need to do something for these people. This is what I'd like to leave with you. I'm charging you. I'm doing everything I can. I'm thousands of miles away. My wife and I, we talk about political prisoners whenever we have an opportunity to. You all are in the trenches. You've got to do something. You've got to do it.
I'm actually running short of time. Charlotte, I want to give you a final comment. I can't get your question on Congo. I'm so sorry. But Charlotte, you can go ahead and give your final comment.
I'd like to say, don't give up, y'all. Don't give up. Life may be rough, things might get tough, but don't you give up. Love y'all. Blessings flow.
Oh, I will certainly appreciate it. We will. So when the film comes out, we certainly will have y'all back on to talk about it again. Folks, it is Love Away the Hate. A film that Elizabeth is working on, and again, her IG, folks, is take this down. You begin to follow her. Is EBDIONNA, EBDIONNA. Pete O'Neill, Charlotte, we appreciate it, and again, we hope to see y'all soon as a part of our African journey. We may have to spend a month there, since all the places people trying to get me to visit. So we'll see what happens. I appreciate it. Thanks a lot. All right, y'all take care. Thank you so very much. All right, folks, hold tight 1 second. When we come back, we'll pay tribute to an American hero, retired General Colin Powell, who passed away today at the age of 84. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network.
Oh, that spin class was brutal. Well, you can try using the Buick's massaging seat. Oh, yeah, that's nice.
Can I use Apple CarPlay to put some music on?
Sure, it's wireless.
Pick something we all like.
Okay, hold on.
What's your Buick's Wi-Fi password?
Buick Envision 2021.
Oh, you should pick something stronger. That's really predictable.
That's a really tight spot.
Don't worry, I used to hate parallel parking.
Me too.
Hey.
Really outdid yourself.
Yes, we did.
The all-new Buick Envision, an SUV built around you, all of you.
Once upon a time, there lived a princess with really long hair who was waiting for a prince to come save her. But really, who has time for that?
Let's go. Feeling myself. I'm feeling
She ordered herself a ladder with Prime one-day delivery, and she was out of there.
I want some hood girls looking back at it, and a good girl in my tax bracket.
Now, her hairdressing empire is killing it. And the prince? Well, who cares? Prime changes everything.
But I'm back at it, and I'm feeling myself.
We all received some sad news this morning when the family of retired four-star General Colin Powell announced that he had passed away at the age of 84. America's first black Secretary of State, also the first black chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, in addition to the first black National Security Advisor, and remarkable man who had done so much for this country. His family released the following statement on Facebook. General Colin L. Powell, former U.S. Secretary of State and Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, passed away this morning due to complications from COVID-19. He was fully vaccinated. We want to thank the medical staff at Walter Reed National Medical Center for their caring treatment. We have lost a remarkable and loving husband, father, grandfather, and a great American, the Powell family. Now, he was also suffering from multiple myeloma, a cancer of a type of white blood cell which can harm the body's immune system. Folks, look at the life of Colin Powell, done so much, certainly was a mentor to so many, not just those who were in the armed services, but those in the diplomatic corps. One of the folks who followed in his footsteps is retired General William E. Kip Ward, who also is one of the very few African Americans ever to attain the rank of 4-star general. Always glad to have you here, General Ward. Just share your thoughts and reflections about someone who so many people looked up to, but especially brothers and sisters who were in the armed services.
Well, thanks, Roland. I'm certainly happy to be with you this evening, and sorry the occasion is what it is. By the way, I enjoyed your last segment as well. But getting to General Colin Powell, clearly a luminary. I've known him, of him, my entire military career. He's someone who we all respected, admired, and call him a godfather of sorts, clearly a mentor for who he was, what he was, his integrity, his character, and his passing is something that has touched all of us very deeply. Certainly members of the African American and minority community of the armed forces, as well as the diplomatic corps. But in some very real aspects, much of America, if not all of America. We lost a luminary, one that is greatly respected and admired, and he will be missed. As I reflect on my understanding of him, truly it goes back to the early 70s, when as a young lieutenant, then captain in Korea, I knew of Lieutenant Colonel Powell. And although we weren't in the same brigade there in the 2nd Infantry Division, I knew him as being one of the 3 black commanders during that time frame in Korea. My association with him continued after that, when as a student at Fort Leavenworth, he came to the Command and General Staff College there and saw that there was no recognition of the Buffalo Soldiers and embarked upon a mission to make that a reality, and it did. And then I was blessed again to be with him when I was commanding my battalion in Fort Wainwright, Alaska. And he was the Forces Command commander after being promoted his 4-star as the 2nd black to get that rank. And he visited my battalion in Alaska. He told me, Kip, it's cold up here. Ironically, I was able to visit with him a few years later as a brigade commander, and he visited my brigade in Somalia. And his comment was, Kip, it's sure hot here. And then, thankfully, when I was elevated to be the first commander of AFRICOM and becoming our nation's first black combatant commander, he was one of the first to congratulate me on that, and always a source of mentorship, inspiration, and just always remembering who he was and what he represented. Respectful of people, respectful of everyone, regardless of their station in life, reminiscent of his roots as the child of immigrants from the Virgin Islands, from Jamaica.
He wrote a book on leadership, and he talked about the importance of leaders. And he gave an interview where he talked about how he did not trust his gut when he went before the United Nations and made the case to go to war with Iraq. And he was, out of all the people who served under President George W. Bush, he was one of the very few who said he made a mistake. And he talked about that. And he said, look, this is going to be a part of my obituary. He owned up to it. That was something that, again, if folks who knew Colin Powell, he did not run away from where he made mistakes. He owned it and then gave people lessons on how they should make better decisions.
You know, his character, his integrity, we're not perfect beings. There was only one who walked this earth, and so we're not perfect beings. And his acknowledgement of mistakes certainly is a mark of his character and his integrity, and in fact endeared so many of us to him, even to a higher degree. Truly, that was an example that we all look to. And the notion of how we as leaders, be we military leaders, but also in civilian life, how we admit to mistakes is such an important part of who we are as characters. And truly, when it comes to leadership, when a woman or a man is able to say, hey, I didn't do that right, I made a mistake. Those who do it as opposed to being a sign of weakness to their character, it's really a sign of strength in their character. And he was admired so much for that. Obviously, we were all very, very sad at his passing today, but he leaves us so many lessons. You mentioned his book, clearly lessons that he talked to there. When he would speak to us very recently, he sat down and had a 2+ hour meeting with the Rocks, talking about his experiences, continuing to pass along to those who have come behind him, both in years past, such as myself, who also now retired, but also to the youngsters, to have them have a further understanding of what it means to, one, be a person of your word, to be one who is respected because you give respect to others, regardless of their station in life, and that every person has value and meaning, and you don't have anything that you're so stuck to that once you hear something that is different than what you may feel and think, you are able to change your thoughts. Really, that's a great feature of this notion of diversity today, the ability to listen to others and adjust your thoughts based on the rationale that others provide you because you are willing to listen to that. And so, yes, that's part of his legacy that we all respect and greatly admire.
One final question for you. I know you have to go, and that is it. General Powell was a black Republican. But General Powell was one of the few black Republicans who would get in the face of the party and make it clear that he was a black man. He was not going to be used for their purposes. When he endorsed President Barack Obama, when he endorsed Joe Biden, he made it clear why. And I think that was something else as well, where he talked about what that meant. Now, there are some other black Republicans who they use plantation, they throw stuff around, but that was not him. He was very clear on who he was, and he would make it clear to white Republicans that he did not shy away from his blackness.
Oh, he was a man of his convictions, and those convictions were deeply rooted in his background, his heritage, what he learned from his parents, and with respect to who he was, he would not be denied because of any of those sorts of things.
Well, General Ward, we certainly appreciate you joining us. Thank you so very much, sharing us with your thoughts about, again, a great man, Colin Powell.
We shall miss him, Roland. We shall miss him, but his legacy lives on.
Indeed. General Ward, thank you so very much.
Thank you. Folks,
when we talk about, again, the impact of Colin Powell, he was someone who, first of all, I'm going to share some stories a little bit later when it came to someone who enjoyed life, enjoyed laughter. That's who he was. But he also was a straight shooter. Another person who is a straight shooter, that is retired Lieutenant General Russell Honoré, who joins us right now. Glad to have you here, General Honoré. Just share with us thoughts, reflections, personal stories about Colin Powell.
Well, General Powell, condolences to his family, of course, Ms. Alma and their children and grandchildren. We all were going to miss him. It's like a member of the family passing away. From my time in the Army and afterwards to get to know him, General Powell is the general of our time. And we've only had a few of them in the history of our country, he being one of them. He set the standards for generals, statesmen, diplomats, and leaders for the 21st century. He is the general of our time. He set a course on strategy that had we followed in Afghanistan, we wouldn't have ended so pitifully. He said, if you go in, you have to get out. A part of your going in strategy has to be a strategy to leave. And we didn't learn that lesson. We didn't listen to General Powell. The other thing, General Powell will be studied for years in history, and it was very clear language, Roland. He said, if you break it, you've got to fix it. And we didn't listen there. And we ended up with a failed state called Afghanistan. Oh, by the way, it was failed when we got there, and we didn't leave it as we thought we should have. We didn't follow General Powell's guidance. But he was a true gentleman. He was a soldier's soldier. I was commanding a battalion in Desert Shield and Desert Storm at the port of Dammam. My job was to secure the ships coming in, Roland, and taking care of the troops until they went off into the desert to attack Saddam's army. And I had the 5th U.S. Corps and the 7th U.S. Corps unloading ships. General Powell came through. We had about 18,000 soldiers there when he arrived. And he said, Russ, what do you need? I said, sir, our soldiers need telephones. They're going to the Saudi hotels and paying $30 for a 3-minute call. And that's not right. We should be able to provide that because they're using the AT&T phone system that goes through the UK so they can call home. He said, Russ, we'll take care of that. We got to take care of the soldiers. And Roland, around the world from where he was in Washington, 36 hours later, their airplanes arrived with AT&T trucks at the port of Dammam, Saudi Arabia, so our troops could call home. He knew the right touchstones. He was connected to soldiers, and they loved him, Roland. He was a soldier's soldier.
One of the things that people don't understand, he also had a huge sense of humor. He was not always Mr. Serious. He was honored in 2009 by the Executive Leadership Council, and prior to the show, they had a waiting room, and he was taking pictures, and I walked in, and he said, oh, there's that ugly man. I said, ugly man? I said, I will cut your ass. I said, those 4 stars don't mean nothing to me. And so then when we had the program, we were introducing all the honorees. I told the story again. I told Colin Powell, I said, I cut your ass, and the whole room fell out, and I can still see he was just cracking up laughing at me telling this story to the other 3,000 people there. And so he absolutely had a sense of humor.
Yeah, he had a way to connect with people. He was always the tallest man in the room, Roland, and I've been with him around many generals and elected politicians, but he had a way to stand out. His sense of humor, he could easily talk to a private or another 4-star general or a member of the cabinet, all within one breath, and made everybody feel that they were important and they were part of a team. He had that way of communicating with people. And yes, he could laugh. I remember some years ago, maybe 2006, I went to Washington and had the honor to sit down and have dinner with he and Miss Alma and General Ward and a couple others. And what a wonderful evening that was to just sit and relax and talk. And he had one-liners that worth emulating, because he was able to take the complex and reduce it to truths that the American people understood. And his character, Roland, I think someone asked me earlier, he was not an aspiring politician. He was a public servant who believed in the truth. And I've tried to emulate that myself. When you deal with the truth and you're not worried about being elected to an office, because politicians have the burden of telling people what they want to hear, not what they need to hear. And General Powell had a reputation of telling the American people what they needed to hear, the truth.
Retired General Russell Honoré, we appreciate you sharing your thoughts about the passing of General Colin Powell. Thanks a lot.
We're going to miss him. God bless him.
I have a sister who served in the Marine Corps. She's going to be next after, hold tight 1 second, Tamina Ward, because Congresswoman Maxine Waters joins us. And so it's not because you're in the Marine Corps and he was in the Army. Just wanted to let you know that. Well, joining us right now is Congresswoman Maxine Waters. Congresswoman, glad to have you here on Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Thank you for inviting me.
Look, you had policy differences with General Colin Powell when it came to a variety of issues. But the one thing that I must say is that even people who had policy differences with him, there was a tremendous amount of respect sitting across from him talking about issues.
You're absolutely right, Roland, and I certainly did have policy differences with him. You know, he was a Republican, and of course I'm a Democrat, and so we didn't agree on a lot of issues. However, you're absolutely correct. We did have great respect for him. As a matter of fact, the more I think about it, I think more than having differences with him, I was jealous that this tremendous human being was a Republican and not a Democrat. And so I was jealous. And I wanted him to be, you know, in our party, working with us and bringing the wisdom that he had and his ability to lead, you know, with us. And so it was not so much the differences as it was so much the respect that I held for him that I wish was on our side. But eventually, of course, he did join in support of Obama. And it was, you know, because of Trump that I think he just couldn't take it anymore with the Republicans. And he did not agree, certainly, with the way Trump was providing leadership as president in this country. But I have a story to tell about him. And it's this. The last coup d'etat that took place in Haiti, where President Aristide was removed and ended up in Central African Republic. I saw Colin Powell in the hallway, and I was pretty angry at the time. And I said to Colin Powell, you assisted with getting Aristide out of Haiti and getting him up in the Central African Republic. Why did you do that? And he said, I did not do that. I said, yes, I understand that the French basically consulted you before, you consulted them rather, to take him because they had to get him out of Haiti. He said, no. I said, and he's up there and we don't know what's going to happen to him. We may get killed. We don't know what's going to happen. And so I said, you don't want to be responsible for that. And he said, I'm not, and he can leave anytime he wants to. And I said, I don't think so. And he said, oh, yes, he can. I said, well, I tell you what, I'm going to get him. And so he said, okay. And we parted. And then I remember I had to go up to Boston. I was dealing with, I think, the Haiti issue up there. But I was put in touch with, and I don't remember all of the details, with his chief of staff. And his chief of staff actually assisted me with getting the visas to get into the Central African Republic. And I always felt that he could not have done that but for being instructed to give me that assistance by Colin Powell. And so I went to the Central African Republic. We chartered a plane, Randall Robinson and I, and the attorney in Miami that had been the attorney to Aristide for so many years, and we had some members of the press with us, and we went up and negotiated overnight, and I won't get into all the details of the story, but we were able to get back out of there because a coup had just taken place up there. But I always believe without Colin Powell telling me that he assisted me in getting up to the Central African Republic safely.
That certainly speaks volumes to the kind of man that he was. I asked this of General Ward, and I'll ask this of you. He also was one of the very few people who admitted the mistakes that he made by going to the United Nations and using his credibility, which is why the Bush administration wanted him to give that presentation. And he said he did not trust his gut instinct. He said he knew something was amiss. He didn't trust it, but he admitted to it. And he said it would be discussed when he passed away. He was always fully aware of what other people thought about integrity. And that story makes me remember what Max Robinson said when he was standing at Howard University in 1988. He's dying of AIDS. And he says to the students at Howard, never ever lose your integrity or your credibility, because in the end, that's all you've got.
Wow, that's very profound. I want you to know that Colin Powell showed up at some event with the Congressional Black Caucus. And he wanted to take a picture, and they wanted to take a picture. And I was kind of standing aside, looking on. And Colin Powell and I always had this relationship where, you know, he thought I was a little bit leery of him, and I thought he was a little bit leery of me. And so I was standing watching as they were organizing this photograph that they were going to take. And so he beckoned to me and said, come on and get in this photograph. And I was a little bit hesitant, but I couldn't refuse him. And so I got into the picture with the rest of the members of Black Caucus and took the picture because Colin Powell wanted me to be in the picture with all of them. And so you're absolutely right. Despite the fact there may have been public policy differences, et cetera, everyone respected him. He was a symbol of success. He was a symbol of an African-American man who had made it to the top and was not only a hard worker, but someone that people could trust. And I know that the way that he was misused in, showing the pictures of the ammunition, what have you, that was in Iraq, it was almost like a setup. And he never ever, he never ever got over that quite. And he knew that this would be recorded in history in ways that would undermine all of the work that he had done, all of the credibility that he had gained. And so it was unfortunate that it happened. I didn't know that he said he should have listened to his first voice, but I do know it was so unfair to be misused that way, and he regretted it always.
Congresswoman Maxine Waters, we certainly appreciate you joining us for us this paying tribute to retired General Colin Powell, passed away at the age of 84. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Roland, for doing this.
Thank you very much. Got to go to a break. We come back. We'll hear from a member of the Marine Corps, get her thoughts on General Colin Powell. We'll also share reflections from a number of luminaries, President Joe Biden, former President Barack Obama, President George W. Bush, CBC members. Also, Tyler Perry, who played Colin Powell in a movie, shared his thoughts as well. Folks, we will continue with our tribute to the late Colin Powell, who passed away today at the age of 84. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network.
Maureen is saving big holiday shopping at Amazon, so now she's free to become Maureen the Merrier. Food is her love language, and she really loves her grandson, like really loves.
Colin Powell didn't just, he wasn't just, of course, a mentor to many men in the military. Women also looked up to him as well. Joining us right now is the former Master Sergeant for the U.S. Marine Corps, Tamina Ward. How you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Doing great. Just share with us, again, your thoughts on the passing of a great American hero, Colin Powell.
Great American hero is right. Talking about legacy, impact, quick story. So I joined in 2001 while he was the Secretary of State. And I joined the Marine Corps and I didn't know anything about rank structure or anything, but I would see him on television, watch the interviews and say, wow, he is in such a high position of leadership and he looks like me. So, you know, by being able to see someone, there's no greater promise that tells me that I can be something, especially in the military, especially being African American, than by showing me. And that's exactly what General Powell did. Now, in the military, you know, he was Army, and in the branches of service, sometimes we have banter, friendly banter back and forth. But when you see a leader and you understand what a leader actually does and the legacy that they're doing, you respect it. And he was so well respected from all of his everything that he did in the military, but also in the community, from helping and understanding the importance of education. I joined the military because of education, and he understood that pouring into the children of today meant saving the world tomorrow. And I'm just so very grateful to have been able to watch him throughout my career, be able to be inspired by him throughout my career. And, you know, there is nothing like the legacy that he is leaving behind.
The thing that is important here is that he was not just a military man. That formed the basis of who he was, but it went beyond that. Again, National Security Advisor, yes. Chairman Joint Chiefs of Staff, of course, being Secretary of State, but also the work that he did with education in the nonprofit area as well. I mean, he touched so many different areas and really was widely respected by so many different people.
Yes, and what I loved so much is that he knew that together we can make a difference. So I love the way that he involved the community, involved the Boys and Girls Club, involved local businesses and said, hey, we all have a responsibility in training, in mentoring, and teaching our young children. They are the future. So together we have to do this as a team to mentor and bring up these children, because understanding the importance of what we're doing today is going to affect many years to come. And with his work, the time that he put in, the effort that he put in, bringing everyone together, and the accountability that he put on us as a community, as a world, to make a difference is just phenomenal. Phenomenal man, phenomenal legacy, phenomenal life.
Indeed. Tamina Ward, we surely appreciate you joining us, sharing your thoughts, and contributing to this tribute to Colin Powell.
Thank you so much.
Macongo, Georgia, I'll get your perspective as well. And so, Macongo, you first.
When I got the news this morning, man, I was stopped just dead in my tracks, to be quite honest. And I didn't expect to have that kind of reaction because, you know, I just stopped and I was like, this man has been a part of my life, like all of my adult life. He was a presence there for me, right? And, you know, never met him or anything like that. But as a young person growing up, and we looked up for so many entertainers, you know, athletes and musicians, he was like one of the only like 2 or 3 non-entertainer black male profiles out there that I could really look to and aspire to. And so I really had a lot of respect for him for decades, like so many other people have mentioned. And I think it's also important to mention that he didn't care what your party affiliation was. If he felt that you were doing harm to America, he would speak up. Case in point, when you look at Sarah Palin, you saw that, you know, John McCain also had the military background, you know, Republican and so on and so forth. But Colin Powell saw back then that she could be the type of person who could help lead towards a January 6th type insurrection. He didn't just look at her as a joke He looked at her as a danger. He knew about this type of stuff back then. When you look at his endorsement of people like former President Obama and the like, he stood up for truth. He stood up for what was right, and we need more of that. So I'm really saddened to hear about his passing. I'm really saddened to hear about just the fact that people didn't fully understand him, as well as the other people that you've had on tonight to give such a powerful tribute. But I'm thankful that we have had him in our life as a true example of what leadership is, so many of us can aspire to it as well. Let's also remember that on the international level, he was one of the first people to call what was happening in Sudan a genocide. So whenever he saw an opportunity to speak up for the marginalized communities, nationally or internationally, he was there, and it's the type of leadership that I seek to emulate. Rest in peace and power.
Georgia?
Well, it's a sad, sad day because there will never be another Colin Powell. And I think just his philosophy on leadership, if you've ever had a chance to read his books, he broke leadership down so simply. He one of his quotes is leadership is solving problems. And I think if more politicians looked at him as an example of true bipartisanship, we would be a lot further along as a country. But what he displayed, he was one of those leaders that truly led by example, and he did so with integrity and using his position to speak truth to power. There just will never be another Colin Powell. And so although I'm very, very saddened by his passing, I also think that it's a very fitting time to celebrate his legacy.
Indeed. I reached out to the NAACP. He was honored in 2011 with the highest medal, the Sping On Award. They posted this on their Instagram page. This was his speech that year.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Ben. Thank you, Haley, and my thanks to the NAACP for this award. It's a great honor to receive this from an organization that means so very, very much to me. I especially thank you for paying tribute in the video to someone just as deserving of this award as me, my partner, my wife for 49 years, Ahmaud. Thank you. I'm also very pleased that this program will be seen by servicemen and women around the world. We often talk about the greatest generation and refer to the World War II generation, but America has been blessed to have that kind of greatness in every generation, and I'm telling you, no generation is any greater than the current generation of young men and women serving today around the world for us. I'm a professional soldier, and I entered the Army just a few years after segregation ended in the early 50s. And the Army was perhaps the most progressive social institution in our nation in terms of equal rights for all. And they explained it to me very simply when I entered the Army. They said, now listen, we don't care if you're black or white. Don't give us any hard luck stories about being a son of immigrants, born in Harlem, raised in the South Bronx. We don't care. The only thing we care about is performance. You perform, you'll get ahead. You don't perform, you won't get ahead. Do you have any questions? No, sir. And that's what I tried to do throughout my life. And it allowed me to rise to the highest positions in the military and have other important positions in our government. But I know absolutely for a fact that it isn't just what I did. It's what those who went before me did. They kicked the door open. I didn't just drop out. And I'm telling you, there were people just as qualified as I was, but they came along too early, before the nation understood its responsibility to all of its citizens. And so I pay tribute to the men and women who served in America's armed forces for some hundreds of years before my turn came. And I also pay tribute to all of the leaders of our civil rights revolution who broke the doors open for me. And no organization, no institution was more important than the NAACP for what it's done for over 100 years. Now, people think it's over. You become chairman, you become Secretary of State, everything's okay. No, everything is not okay. We still have youngsters who are in desperate straits. We have youngsters who need a quality education, who need health care, who need us to surround them with love. We've got youngsters throughout America, white and black, but especially our African American youngsters and our Hispanic youngsters who have to be given a sense of expectation. We believe in you, believe in yourself, believe in America, and you too can perform and go up. But we will still need, let there be no doubt that even though we have come so far, we will need the NAACP for yet another 100 years and perhaps even more until the work is done. Thank you so very, very much.
And just so folks know, that was not just, oh, he was saying that because he was on stage. Earlier that day, I sat down with General Powell for this interview that aired 10 years ago on TV One's Washington Watch, and I asked him that very question. Days when you hear people say, President Barack Obama's in the White House, there's no need for the NAACP, no need for the National Urban League. Everything is just wonderful. Those places can close up shop. Yet I never heard anybody say when Senator Lieberman was running for vice president that if he wins, no need for the ADL. If Senator Clinton won, no need for a national organization of women.
Well, there's a greater need than ever, but in a different kind of way. So many minorities have been successful. And when you look at the African American community, look at the two of us. Look at what's going on elsewhere in our country. We have a president who is African American, and we have corporate leaders. And another distinguished person is being honored tonight, Dr. Benjamin, who is the Surgeon General of the United States of America. But when you look away from this success and into our inner cities and into some of our rural areas, we still see minorities who are trapped. They're trapped in bad economic circumstances, they are trapped in bad educational circumstances, and they are trapped in communities and families that can't give them the kind of support that Roland, you and I got when we were coming up. And so we got to keep working. We got to reach down to these young people and bring them up. But we also have to put the burden on them and tell them, look, we want you to be successful. So you can't drop out of school. You can't start going to school or going to school and saying, you know, well, I don't want to be too smart. You know, I don't want to be like Whitey. We've got to teach our youngsters to have greater self-awareness and self-responsibility. We can't keep going with a 72% rate of children being born out of a stable marriage. There's nothing terrible about a single parent family, and we have lots of those, and that isn't to say it doesn't work. But I think overall we should try to bring our youngsters into a life that is based on values and honesty and the ability to get an education. And whether it's a single parent or two people together, we've got to start investing in our children more and invest in them not just with material things, but to tell them, as your parents told you, my parents told me, listen, we have expectations for you.
High expectations.
Yeah. We didn't come to this country for you to stick something in your nose. We didn't come to this country for you to bop around not getting an education. We came to this country to better this family, and you are the way we better this family. And so you will not fail us. And the second thing my parents drilled into me, and I'm sure they drilled it into you, you have a sense of shame. Don't you shame this family. If you shame this family, then ain't no point you coming home no more. And that's what we got to get into our children again. We've got to restore that sense of expectations. Believe in yourself and believe in this country, and don't shame your family.
But is the village also afraid to do it? What I mean by the village, aunts and uncles, cousins, nephews, because we say, oh, that's my brother or sister's kid, I really don't want to go there.
Let me tell you what, in the South Bronx where I was growing up, every aunt and uncle, especially the aunts, it was matriarchal. They would hang out the windows, those tenement buildings looking down on the street, and any kid that was part of that extended family who was misbehaving was going to hear about it from an aunt, if not mama. Mama was working. It was the extended family that took care of us and kept us all in play. I'll tell you one quick story. There was a Hispanic kid, because it's not just African Americans, Hispanics, American Indians, lots of people are in need. But this young man just graduated from a high school in Denver. It's a Jesuit high school. And he came from a difficult background, and he became the valedictorian. And everybody in that class, 80-something students, are all going to college. So he's being interviewed on television. And they said, well, how did you make it? How did you do it? And he said two things. He said, one, I was never, ever given the opportunity to fail. My parents, my coaches, my teachers, they refused to let me fail. We've got to get that kind of you can't fail structure into the life of every one of our youngsters. And then he said something else. He said, my parents are immigrants. They didn't do very well in education. They didn't go to high school or anything like that. He said, by me finishing high school and now going to Georgetown University, I have changed the history of my family. And his children will be achievers. So what we have to do is to not let any of our children fail by giving them the support they need, the education they need, and let them know that they have the opportunity to change the history of their family and change the history of this country.
When I come back, I'm going to talk with the panel about his commitment to education and children next, as we continue to pay tribute to late General Colin Powell, who passed away this morning at the age of 84. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network.
Oh, that spin class was brutal. Well, you can try using the Buick's massaging seat. Ooh, yeah, that's nice.
Can I use Apple CarPlay to put some music on?
Sure, it's wireless.
Pick something we all like. Okay, hold on. What's your Buick's Wi-Fi password?
Buick Envision 2021.
Oh, you should pick something stronger. That's really predictable.
That's a really tight spot. Don't worry, I used to hate parallel parking.
Me too.
Hey.
Really outdid yourself.
Yes, we did.
The all-new Buick Envision, an SUV.
Betty is saving big holiday shopping at Amazon. So now, she's free to become Bear Hug Betty. Settle in, kids. You'll be there a while. Ooh, where you going?
The point we made before we go into break, education, was what his central focus was. The organization he and his wife founded, Omakongo, really was focused on that, where they wanted to create essentially an education-related Peace Corps. Really wanted to be able to train a whole new generation of people to go out and, again, focus on education and getting the next generation ready to lead.
Yeah, absolutely. And you have to understand how committed he was to education, because he realized that it was the key to everything. He is a product of New York City public schools, went to City College, and grew to where he is today because of his commitment to his education and his commitment to service. And so when he's traveling and doing all of his work and service around the world, he's not just seeing everything from a military perspective. He's seeing everything from from the ability to provide opportunities for next generations of leadership in other countries as well as in the United States. And so for him and his wife to be involved in this type of commitment, it's because they lived that life and they saw what's possible. One of the stories I heard today was that so many people approached him growing up, and they said, oh my goodness, you're so incredible. When did you graduate from West Point? And he was like, I never went there. Right? Because he realized that with education and service, you can rise to the top and do anything. And he wanted that opportunity for young people, not only in the United States, but across the world.
Well, the thing here, Tamina, he went to a city college. He didn't go to an elite institution. He didn't go to the Harvards and the Yales or yes to West Point. And so he would often talk about what that education meant to him.
Absolutely. And, by him going to a city college, that just validated every even more, every time he told the kids and told the community how much of an impact that they had, that they could, because of, not going to that Harvard or not going to that high level college, that just validated that much more that you can come from little to nothing and you can be someone. He's the prime example of coming from less than and ending up with greater than, ending up being greater than. Such a powerful story of not having and being able to create out of nothing.
Georgia.
Well, and I think that he came from a generation that had those values of hard work, and a good education will get you to the American dream. And so I think when you really truly believe in those values, and we saw him exemplify that throughout his career, investing back into that and ensuring that those values are in our community, are embedded, ingrained in the next generation. Those were the pathways, those were the keys that allowed him to break through from where he came from to where he rose to. And so I think that there's something to be said about those values. And over the years, maybe we saw them diminish some within our community, within the Black community. And so, it's very heartwarming to know that he and his wife invested so much time and so much of their own resources into making sure that the next generation is able to uphold those values as well.
This was a statement that President Joe Biden put out today. Please pull it up, please, so I can read it for the public. He said, Jill and I are deeply saddened by the passing of our dear friend and the patriot of unmatched honor and dignity, General Colin Powell, the son of immigrants born in New York City, raised in Harlem and the South Bronx, a graduate of the City College of New York. He rose to the highest rank to the United States military and to advise 4 presidents. He believed in the promise of America because he lived it. And he devoted much of his life to making that promise a reality for so many others. As a senator, I worked closely with him when he served as National Security Advisor, Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and as Secretary of State. Over our many years working together, even in disagreement, Colin was always someone who gave you his best and treated you with respect. Colin embodied the highest ideals of both warrior and diplomat. He was committed to our nation's strength and security above all. Having fought in wars, he understood better than anyone that military might alone was not enough to maintain our peace and prosperity. From his front seat view of history, advising presidents and shaping our nation's policies, Colin led with his personal commitment to the democratic values that make our country strong. Time and again, he put country before self, before party, before all else, in uniform and out, and it earned him the universal respect of the American people. Having repeatedly broken racial barriers, blazing a trail for others to follow in federal government service, Colin was committed throughout his life to investing in the next generation of leadership. Whether through his care for the women and men serving under his command and the diplomats he led, or through the work he shared with his wife, Alma, at the Americans Promise Alliance to lift up young people, or through his years leading the Eisenhower Fellowships, Colin's leadership always included a focus on future. Above all, Colin was my friend, easy to share a laugh with, a trusted confidant in good and hard times. He could drive his Corvette Stingray like nobody's business, something I learned firsthand on the racetrack when I was vice president. And I am forever grateful for his support of my candidacy for president and for our shared battle for the soul of the nation. I will miss being able to call on his wisdom in the future. Jill and I are sending all of our love and strength to Alma, their children Linda, Anne-Marie, and Michael, their grandchildren, and the entire Powell family. Our nation mourns with you. Colin Powell was a good man, and he will be remembered as one of our great Americans. And of course, the president ordered flags to be flown at half-staff in honor of Colin Powell. There have been only 2 people in American history who have been awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom twice. Well, Colin Powell was one of those individuals awarded by President Clinton as well as President Bush. Here is one of those ceremonies.
Unsurpassed leadership and judgment in difficult times. A deft manager and forthright counselor, he personifies the ideal of the soldier statesman, serving the president and the nation with personal integrity, political judgment, and military skill. As the architect and manager of Operations Desert Shield and Desert Storm, he oversaw the vindication of principle, the defense of Saudi Arabia, and the liberation of Kuwait. The United States honors this professional servant of peace and freedom.
The Presidential Medal of Freedom with distinction is awarded to Colin Powell. 35 years of dedicated and selfless service to America marked the career of Colin Powell. He vigilantly guarded our nation's interest in a time of awesome change as the walls of totalitarianism began to crumble and a new nations grappled with the challenge of democracy. His foresight and vision have helped transform our armed forces into the unified fighting force necessary to meet the challenges of a new century. In the midst of his heavy responsibilities, he found time to encourage America's young people to devote their lives to public service. The United States honors this soldier statesman, whose accomplishments have earned the respect and admiration of a grateful nation. Ladies and gentlemen, General Powell has also been awarded the Department of Defense Distinguished Service Medal and the Distinguished Service Award of each branch of the armed services. The Department of the Army Decoration for Distinguished Civilian Service is awarded to Mrs. Ahmaud Powell. Mrs. Powell distinguished herself through her 31 years of selfless service and support of numerous public service activities, which have contributed significantly to the welfare of military personnel and their families, thereby greatly enhancing the readiness of the United States Armed Forces. She has been an effective and vocal advocate for policies and programs which have directly benefited the health, welfare, and morale of military families. For over 3 decades, she has given freely of her time and talent to such organizations as the American Red Cross and the Armed Forces Hostess Association, and as a current member of the Ronald McDonald House Board and the National Military Family Board of Advisors. Her spirit of volunteerism has extended to and contributed to the well-being of local and world communities. In addition, she is a much sought-after speaker who has devoted time as a speaker to groups in and around the capital area. Mrs. Powell's caring and unselfish service reflects great credit upon herself and the United States Army. On the occasion of the retirement of her husband from active status with the United States Army, Ahmaud Powell is awarded the Department of the Army Certificate of Appreciation for her own unselfish, faithful, and devoted service. Her unfailing support and understanding helped to make possible her husband's long-lasting contribution to the nation. Signed, General Gordon R. Sullivan, Chief of Staff of the Army.
This is a statement that President Barack Obama released years ago when he was asked to reflect on his own life. General Colin Powell described himself as first and foremost a problem solver. It was true, of course, but he was far more than that. General Powell was an exemplary soldier and exemplary patriot. He was at the center of some of the most consequential events of our lifetimes, serving 2 decorated tours in Vietnam, guiding U.S. strategy in the Gulf War, serving as National Security Advisor, Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and Secretary of State, offering counsel to 4 presidents and helping shape American foreign policy for decades. Along the way, General Powell helped a generation of young people set their sights higher. He never denied the role that race played in his own life and in our society more broadly. But he also refused to accept that race would limit his dreams. And through his steady and principled leadership, helped pave the way for so many who would follow. It was the way Colin would saw the world, not as a starry-eyed idealist, but as someone with deep and abiding faith in this country and what it stands for that made him such a central figure. On a personal level, I was deeply appreciative that someone like General Powell, who had been associated with Republican administrations in the past, was willing to endorse me in 2008. But what impressed me even more was how he did it. At a time when conspiracy theories were swirling with some questioning my faith, General Powell took the opportunity to get to the heart of the matter in only way he could. The correct answer is he is not a Muslim. He's a Christian, General Powell said. But the really right answer is, what if he is? If there's something wrong with being a Muslim in this country, the answer is no. That's not America. Is there something wrong with some 7-year-old Muslim American kid believing that he or she could be president? That's who Colin Powell was. He understood what was best in this country and tried to bring his own life, career, and public statements in line with that ideal. It's why, for all the battles he fought and problems he saw, Michelle and I will always look to General Powell as an example of what America and Americans can and should be if we wish to remain the last best hope on earth. Our family sends our thoughts and prayers to Alma, their 3 children and grandchildren, and everyone mourning his loss today. On that particular point there, Georgia, Omakongo, as well as Dwayne, I really want to focus on this because that it was powerful when he went on Meet the Press and he made that statement. When he spoke so strongly and convincingly on this issue, this is what he said.
I'm also troubled by not what Senator McCain says, but what members of the party say. And it is permitted to be said such things as, well, you know that Mr. Obama is a Muslim. Well, the correct answer is he is not a Muslim. He's a Christian. He's always been a Christian. But the really right answer is, what if he is? Is there something wrong with being a Muslim in this country? The answer is no, that's not America. Is there something wrong with some 7-year-old Muslim American kid believing that he or she could be president? Yet I have heard senior members of my own party drop this suggestion. He's a Muslim and he might be associated with terrorists. This is not the way we should be doing it in America. I feel strongly about this particular point because of a picture I saw in a magazine. There was a photo essay about troops who are serving in Iraq and Afghanistan. And one picture at the tail end of this photo essay was of a mother in Arlington Cemetery. And she had her head on the headstone of her son's grave. And as the picture focused in, you could see the writing on the headstone. And it gave his awards, Purple Heart, Bronze Star, showed that he died in Iraq, gave his date of birth, his date of death. He was 20 years old. And then at the very top of the headstone, it didn't have a Christian cross. It didn't have a Star of David. It had a crescent and a star of the Islamic faith. And his name was Kareem Rashad Sultan Khan. And he was an American. He was born in New Jersey. He was 14 years old at the time of 9/11. And he waited until he can go serve his country, and he gave his life. Now, we have got to stop polarizing ourselves in this way.
Georgia, that is the kind, that's what you call a person of integrity.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I think that we should all take notes because our nation has continued to be polarized. I mean, even looking at the attack on the Capitol on January 6th, we continue to see a portion of our nation that feels like if it's not white, it's not right. And we are more than that. We are a diverse country. We almost everyone here is from somewhere else, and so to get to this place where we truly embrace each other as humans and set aside these differences and learn how to appreciate one another. And I think that's what he was getting there at the essence of looking at the character of a person and not their religion, not their race, not their socioeconomic status, or even their education status for that matter, but looking at the character of a person and defining them by that. And if we could just take that as a lesson from him and the legacy that he leaves behind, I think we would all be in a much better place.
Tamina, go ahead.
Absolutely. I absolutely agree. It does. It just deeply speaks to integrity of his soul, understanding and defending, our backgrounds, our religions. Even in the military, we've had to fight throughout the years to stand up for who we are on the inside at times. And I think that was such a great example of him fighting for the president while he endorsed him, because he understood who he was on the inside. It did not matter, what everyone thought that he was. It only mattered what he was going to do for this country, and he deeply supported that. And that statement really meant such a difference in the presidency.
Congo.
I talk often about the importance and the need to find common ground in these uncommon times. When we see how this man, how this leader, how this hero is celebrated across the aisle, from military to civilian, every single area of society is paying this man respect. It needs to be an example, like Georgia talked about. When we see great individuals like Tamina, and thank you for your service as well. General Powell, Secretary Powell showed us through his life, him and his wife Alma, they have showed us what is possible. After we finish praising him today and tomorrow, and after the services that will happen for him, we need to all look at our individual lives and ourselves and say, what can we do to better further peace in this society? They could have formed an organization focused around more military training because he believed that's a great way to serve the country, and of course it is. But they focus on the service side, the educational side, the diplomacy side, because they believe that through courageous conversations, through doing the work, we can create communities where everybody can be celebrated and not tolerated.
Folks, again, other tributes. This is President George W. Bush, his statement that he released upon the passing of Colin Powell. Please pull it up. Laura and I are deeply saddened by the death of Colin Powell. He was a great public servant, starting with his time as a soldier during Vietnam. Many presidents relied on General Powell's counsel and experience. He was National Security Advisor under President Reagan, Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff under my father and President Clinton, and Secretary of State during my administration. He was such a favorite of presidents that he earned the Presidential Medal of Freedom twice. He was highly respected at home and abroad, and most important, Colin was a family man and a friend. Laura and I send Alma and their children our sincere condolences as they remember the life of a great man. That was President George W. Bush. Tyler Perry, who played Colin Powell in one movie, issued this statement that was pretty cool. And actually, Jeffrey Wright also played him in one of the movies. This is what he posted on Instagram and Twitter. One of the greatest honors I've ever had was not only playing this giant of an American in American history, but also being able to call him a friend. We had some of the most profound and thought-provoking conversations over these past few years. He will be missed. What a soldier. What a man, what a legacy. The person who followed him, the Secretary of State, Condoleezza Rice, she issued this statement on her Instagram page. Pull it up, please. Today, our nation mourns the passing of a truly great man. Colin Powell spent the entirety of his life in service to his country. He was a trusted colleague and a dear friend through some very challenging times. His devotion to our nation was not limited to the many great things he did while in uniform or during his time spent in Washington. Colin and his wife, Alma, were especially dedicated to and proud of the Colin Powell School for Civic and Global Leadership at the City College of New York, a place very near and dear to his heart. Much of his legacy will live on in the countless number of young lives he touched. My hearts and prayers go out to Alma, his children, and his grandchildren. May God bless you and keep you. Rest in peace, my dear friend. Here's a statement from the highest-ranking African-American in the House, Congressman Jim Clyburn of South Carolina. We're going to pull that up right now for you as well, folks. Let me know when that statement is ready. All right, so we're going to have in just a second. The nation has lost a consummate soldier, a committed public servant, and a real patriot. Colin Powell's storied career was one of clearing hurdles and smashing through glass ceilings. Becoming the first African-American chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff at such a young age is a testament to what unbiased actions can wrought. I admired Colin and shared his love and respect for historically black colleges and universities and considered it one of the highlights of my career to have introduced him when he delivered the commencement address at my alma mater, South Carolina State University, several years ago. He spoke then, as he often did, about the significant role that little HBCUs have historically played in producing general officers for the country's armed service. I am proud to have known Colin and extend my sincere condolences to his wife, Alma, daughters Linda and Ann, and his son Michael, with whom my family has enjoyed a close professional relationship. He will forever be remembered in the annals of American history. That's Majority Whip Jim Clyburn. As I said, folks, Numerous people spoke out on him. One of the people who was deeply touched by him, one of those African Americans who attained the rank of 4-star general, and that is Lloyd Austin, retired General Lloyd Austin, who is now the Secretary of Defense. I texted him earlier today. He was traveling in Europe, but he made this statement to the reporters assembled. The video, please.
The world lost one of the greatest leaders that we have ever witnessed. Alma lost a great husband, and the family lost a tremendous father. And I lost a tremendous personal friend and mentor. We will certainly miss him. I feel as if I have a hole in my heart just learning of this just recently. First African-American chairman of the Joint Chiefs, first African-American Secretary of State, a man who was respected around the globe and who will be, quite frankly, it is not possible to replace a Colin Powell. We will miss him. Again, my thoughts and prayers go out to the family, and we're deeply, deeply saddened to learn of this. Thank you.
Final thoughts here with our panel, and I'll start with you, Omokongo. There were very few people I can think of during my lifetime that in D.C. that when they spoke, it was sort of like that old commercial when E.F. Hutton talks, people listen. There were very few people who, when they made the Sunday morning shows or when they gave an interview, you waited to hear what he had to say. You waited to hear his perspective. That is the kind of stature that Colin Powell had.
Absolutely. And it's just the wisdom, the compassion, and the desire for just for all of us to be better than people say we can be. He wanted to bring people together, and he brought people together. And one of the statements, I think it was from former President Bush, that the statements that you read, said one of the words that we haven't shared tonight, but which is obvious, and that word of patriot, right? And when you look at all of these ridiculous commentaries about patriotism today with these traitors and insurrectionists and people trying to embrace themselves an American flag and they're terrorists and they're using terms like patriot, today we are recognizing a true patriot who represents what it means in every sense of the word, militarily, on the civilian side, whatever it took to further the advancement of people in this society and beyond. Colin Powell was about that. Secretary General Colin Powell was about that. And we need to emulate that to the best of our ability in every space that we occupy. And as cliche as it sounds, that's how we're truly going to make the world a better place.
I'm glad you said that. Because
Ms. Ward?
So,
through his
sweet
entire...
soul of sacrifice. Sweet soul of sacrifice is how I see General Powell. He often talks about expectations and examples, and that's exactly what he did for us. He, showing us how in order to be more, we had to do more, and then we could have more. So leading by example is such a phenomenal man. He believed in the world so much that it made us believe in the world and that we could be more and we could impact more. So, he is irreplaceable. We needed him. Thank God for him. Praying for his family. This is the legacy that will live on for years to come. And he's exactly what we as the world needed to understand and kind of do a little self-reflection as to how we could come together and make the world a better place.
Yeah, I would echo everything that was just said. And to add to that, to build on that, this is a legacy that transcends generations. This is a legacy that transcends different races. Even though throughout his entire career, we saw him break down these racial barriers, right? He's not going to be remembered as a great Black man. He's going to be remembered as a great man. He's not going to be remembered as a great Black leader. He's going to be remembered as a great leader. He transcended so many divisions, I think, that have plagued our nation for so long. And I truly hope with his passing, he inspires, especially those who are serving in public offices, those who are in political seats. I truly hope his legacy inspires them to uphold the integrity and the leadership that he held throughout his career.
Here is Vice President Kamala Harris sharing her thoughts and reflections with regards to the life and legacy of retired General Colin Powell.
What an extraordinary public servant, American patriot. I last saw him in July at the dinner. It was a small dinner that the president hosted for Chancellor Angela Merkel. She had breakfast with me that morning at the residence, and Secretary Powell and I had a chance to catch up. You know, what an incredible American. He obviously served with dignity, he served with grace. He was the epitome of what it means to be strong, but at the same time, so modest in terms of everything that he did and said, in a way that it was never about him, it was about the country, and it was about the people who served with him. We talked a bit about the challenges of this moment, and as you all know, he's very supportive of the president and the work that we needed to get done. But I just want to say that also, you know, he, as the first Black person, Black man to be Joint Chiefs, Chairman of the Joint Chiefs, to be National Security Advisor, to be Secretary of State, every step of the way, when he filled those roles, he was, by everything that he did and the way he did it, inspiring so many people. And there's been a lot of conversation about that, how young service members and others, not only in the military, but in our nation and around the globe, took notice of what his accomplishments meant as a reflection of who we are as a nation. And I think that's one of the most important things to take away, which is that he broke so many barriers, and those barriers were not easy to break by any stretch, but he did it with dignity, he did it with grace, and because of what he was able to accomplish, it really did elevate our nation in so many ways. So may he rest in peace.
Folks, on tomorrow's show, we are going to air for you the interview that I did in 2011 with retired General Colin Powell. We sat down in Los Angeles when he was honored by the NAACP. We showed you one clip. We want to show you the full interview, and so we'll have that for you tomorrow. Tomorrow, in fact, I'll be broadcasting from Atlanta, where Operation Hope is going to be having the Global Hope Forum, and so we look forward to that as well. And so it has been certainly a sad day for many as they reflect on losing a great man. General Colin Powell dying at the age of 84. Certainly condolences go out to his wife, Alma. I had an opportunity to have her on my TV One show, News One Now. I know their son, Michael, very well. I'll be reaching out to him later tonight, expressing my condolences personally. Of course, Michael, former head of the FCC. And so, again, there's no one, you know, we've heard this numerous times from people today on the show. There is only one Colin Powell. When you heard all of those awards that he's been given, all the accolades that he's achieved, there is only one Colin Powell. And in fact, I had the chance to meet him first in 1989 when he headed the U.S. Strategic Command. I think that's the name of it. Based in Tampa, and he had just gotten named head of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. He spoke at the National Association of Black Journalists Convention in 1989. Got a chance to shake hands with him and speak to him, and so it certainly was an honor, and I appreciate it. All of the times that I would see him since then. 2009, when we were at the inauguration, he was nearby, and I convinced him to come on CNN. And it was quite interesting because he was ready to go, and so really convinced him. And so he sat down to do the interview with me. Then they were like, well, no, Wolf is going to do the interview. And probably about 10 minutes in, he was waiting. He said, hey, y'all need to come to me now or I'm leaving. I know how this thing works. They quickly came to him. When he got done, matter of fact, when he got done, I got done as well. I was like, oh, so y'all not gonna have me interview Colin Powell after all that work I did? Well, hell, I'm going on TV One. That's exactly what I did. But let me tell you what happened. So we were walking off, and so another TV producer tried to block him from walking off, and because he wanted to do an interview with him. And Colin Powell's like, no, I'm leaving. So this guy he blocks General Powell. And then all of a sudden, General Powell goes, wait, I'm feeling unsafe, and grabs this dude by both of his shoulders and said, I'm leaving, and moves the dude aside. And I stepped in like, say, bro, it was a white producer. I was like, say, man, get your damn hands off. General's like, I got this, and just move him out of the way. And so don't get all the rest of that stuff. All y'all watching him, you know, he was with presidents and stuff. He was still a bruh.
Don't get it twisted.
He was still a bruh, just letting you know. And so definitely going to miss that great smile of his laughter. And he leaves all of us with great memories. And so we'll be sharing some of those photos with us of him tomorrow. And again, that interview that I did with him 10 years ago on TV One. Folks, for everyone here, Roland Martin Unfiltered and Black Star Network, we thank our panel as well, all of our guests. And again, thoughts and prayers go out to the family of the late General Colin Powell, dead at the age of 84.
To be smart.
Roland Martin's doing this every day.
Oh, no punches!
Thank you, Roland Martin, for always giving voice to the issues.
Look for Roland Martin in the whirlwind, to quote Marcus Garvey again.
The video looks phenomenal, so I'm really excited to see it on my big screen.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
I got to defer to the brilliance of Dr. Carr and to the brilliance of the Black Star Network.
I am rolling with Roland all the way. Honored to be on a show that you own. A black man owns the show.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
I'm real revolutionary right now. Roland was amazing on there.
Stay black. I love y'all.
I can't commend you enough about this platform that you've created for us to be able to share who we are, what we're doing in the world, and the impact that we're having.
Let's be smart. Bring your eyeballs home.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
You dig?